Hey folks, welcome to another episode of ChatLoopBackOff. I'm really excited to be here today. This is going to be hosted out of Australia. It's 5 a.m., so be nice to us. Today, I'm going to be the host, Brad McCoy, and we have Amit. Would you like to do a quick introduction, please, Amit?
Hey folks, I'm Amit D'Souza. I have been working on Kubernetes release team for the past two releases, 1.30 and 31. And I'm really a big proponent of open source software. Um, and as Brad McCoy said, 5 a.m. in Australia, so excited to kick off.
Cool, thank you. And today we're going to do KubeFlow, which is quite exciting because I've heard a lot about KubeFlow, but also there's quite a lot of moving parts, so there's lots of things prerequisites, so it's going to be quite interesting to see that. And I was thinking about today, we probably won't have time to install because it's quite 1 hour is quite a short time, but maybe we could go from like a cloud architect perspective and say, well, okay, this is KubeFlow, and what would it take for us to implement that, or at least get a POC going? How does that sound?
Absolutely. We can
Cool.
walk
And
through all the
also,
components.
this is governed by the CNCF Code of Conduct, so please be nice and respect other people in the chat. You can find that online if you need to look at it. So let's get started. So, Emmett, you've done lots of POCs as well. Generally, the first thing I will do is I will go to GitHub, see some stars, sort of check out the project. I then normally go to Artifact Hub. Does that sound like a good plan to you?
That sounds perfect.
All right, let's do it. So I'll just share my screen. And do you want to just give the folks a high-level overview of what KubeFlow actually is?
Absolutely. So KubeFlow is supposed to be a new pipeline tool in order to manage all your machine learning pipelines. This is in order to basically help you set up all your machine learning requirements on Kubernetes rather than having to reuse anything else. It also leverages Jupyter notebooks, so you can run all your tooling on your local, after which, once you're comfortable with how everything runs, you're going to push it on to KubeFlow. So let's
And
walk
then
through.
we can go kubeflow.org. That will give us, we'll see this after GitHub. So 14.2 thousand stars. That's quite a lot. That's pretty cool. So there are a lot of people using it.
Yeah. Based on what
Actually,
I've read about it, KubeFlow used to be what Google used to use in the background for machine learning.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that's where they have finally open sourced it with all the different tooling in place.
It's quite cool because it probably works with Kubernetes really well, right? Because it was sort of, I wonder if it was built to be native to Kubernetes. That would be interesting as well, which I'm sure we'll see soon.
Yeah.
There's a there's a lot of components here as well. The KServe one's interesting. Like it'll be interesting to see if we need to actually install KServe as well, because there's quite a lot of stuff in there to unpack.
Yeah.
Um,
It seems to have KServe, KTIP, KubeFlow model registry, Empire operator, notebooks, pipelines, Spark,
yeah,
and trading operator. And these are just the KubeFlow components. Um,
it
should we go through each one of them?
probably not just yet. I reckon it could be. It might not have time, but I'm also wondering, from when you're sort of working with data, there's a lot of different personas and roles involved. So it would also be interesting to see, from a data analysis point, how much do they get exposed to a lot of this at the back, or do they just get the notebooks and away they go? So that would also be quite interesting too.
True.
So, because you're going to need your platform engineer, you're going to need your data. There's so many people will probably be involved in this, a project like this.
Yeah. I based on what I've heard now, you have a new type of engineer. Like it's basically a DevOps engineer, but the role keeps progressing and changing with time, right? So there is a new engineer called ML Ops engineer who
Yeah.
generally tend to be working on these particular tool sets. And again, if you go back to the developers, they would just work with the Jupyter notebooks, and it's the MLOps engineer who would ensure that it would be simple to interact with KubeFlow for
Mm.
any of the developers.
So for folks out there like wondering on careers, that could be a good career path as well, right? Because it's quite a niche little, quite highly skilled too. So you could sort of progress into that. That could be quite a good option.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Again, there's a big learning curve. So first you
Mm.
need to learn about Kubernetes, then you will learn about KubeFlow. So there's a massive learning curve, but it's definitely quite nascent and new. So if you get into it early on, there is quite a lot of scope.
Let's see the website. So we've got, yeah, I did notice the email ops come up a lot when researching this as well. So that's sort of the key thing. So KFP and the pipelines, that will be interesting to unpack that a bit as well. To see if they use like a DAG approach, like Argo workflows, Airflow, Apache Airflow, etc. Dashboard will be interesting. And this KServe too, I'd like to. I'm actually looking at implementing Knative at the moment as well. And it's very, very exciting. So this would be good to see how that, if this is the Knative serving, I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah. It does look like that is mainly used in order to deploy your models and to provide a live model for your end users.
All right, so let's go to docs. Hopefully we can make a good first session to improve these if we find something that is not obvious. Oh, there's some feedback
Absolutely.
there. All right, so let's quickly look at about, see if there's anything in there. Oh, that's just, yeah, okay, contributing, etc. Getting started. So probably
Yeah,
concepts before getting started might be,
absolutely.
there's only just the multi-tenancy in there. I think I would like to see more key concepts in here, like for example, um, all of these, for example, just like a small like definition of what they actually do would be nice. I think that would be an improvement to the docs for concepts.
Yeah. I do think they have put
Maybe
it
that's
under components
yeah,
for
true.
all of
Yeah,
that.
that's true. Okay, this is actually okay. I take that back. This is actually really good. So we've got the
KubeFlow
dashboard.
central dashboard.
Yeah, okay. So this looks quite neat.
Yeah, you start to see the 14,000 stars coming into place here,
Yeah,
where there are lots of people who are using it and
it looks like that.
contributing.
Looks like that material UI sort of Google feel as well.
Hmm.
To the dashboard. Yeah, it looks quite good. I wonder if they have single sign-in and stuff. I'm sure they do.
Yeah. Based on what I was looking around in the background, they have also provided a simpler way of deploying this onto each of the cloud providers.
Yeah,
The only catch being that there are lots of additional components which go into it, like Istio, and you have to set up for Google. I was specifically checking for Google, and there
mm.
is config connector which you need to set up, etc. So there are definitely
I
a
wonder if
lot
you
of
need a
things
service
rolling in.
mesh for it. It'd be interesting to see if you actually need one.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah, that would be. We can unpack that as well. See what is optional and what isn't.
Hmm.
All right. Is there anything else in here that you're interested in? Maybe the
Uh,
pipelines.
Yeah, Q4 pipelines and KTIP, because I do not know what is KTIP.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that before, but I don't know either. Let's have a look. So, oh, that's quite cool. So you can author end-to-end workflows in Python. So obviously all the data folk love a bit of Python. So it means they're probably scared of YAML and stuff. So that probably suits them quite well.
Yeah,
Oh, there is a
I
YAML as
think,
well. Actually.
yeah, it's anyway, like even in Jupyter notebooks, I think generally everybody's more comfortable to just set it up within the respective languages they are comfortable with, right? So
Right, and then let's look at KTIP. Hopefully, I'm saying that right.
this is AutoML. So this is the hyperparameter tuning which you have to configure prior to beginning your machine learning algorithms when you're creating your models. So I have to admit I have minimal experience with machine learning, but I did work on it on AWS's SageMaker. So that's
That's right. Yeah.
where when I was working on SageMaker, we had to the data engineers or the ML engineers more specifically would provide us with hyperparameter tunings, and we would have to configure that for the model training itself.
Mm.
So looks like this is basically helps in that approach for hyperparameter tuning.
Okay. What was that algorithm that we used that time? Do you remember it?
Um,
Is
I
it
think
Sage
it
Ring?
was mean. Sorry, I don't
Yeah, I can't
remember.
remember. Neither do I. It's all right. And then I guess like I think there's an aspect of it where they do a little bit of not ETL, but I guess data engineering. So um, transforming data and things as well. So
Yeah,
that must be in the pipelines.
k-means.
Spark.
That's the
Oh yeah,
algorithm.
that's right. True. That's right. So the Spark's pretty like cool. Yeah, learning Spark is good because you don't get sort of right. You don't get locked into cloud vendors too. Because I've seen, like AWS glue jobs can get extremely expensive. And this one looks very interesting also.
Yeah.
I wonder, in terms of how do you think the auto scaling works? So when
Well,
you
the good part
um,
is, again, it would rely on Kubernetes auto scaling for everything, right? So you will set certain components to scale on either memory or RAM or all the other factors that you can use within Kubernetes. Like I have used load balancer requests. So I think sky is the limit as far as Kubernetes is concerned, and you want to auto scale your applications or services.
yeah, I think I've seen as well that you can define these as well, like define. We'll look later on if we come across it. All
Yeah.
right, so let's go to getting started. What do you reckon?
Sounds good.
All right, so yeah, as you said, um, it's an open source project that does each stage in the machine learning lifecycle. And yeah, if you're a researcher, data scientist, ML engineer, so it looks like team of developers, yeah.
Yeah. So the KubeFlow platform refers to the whole suite of KubeFlow components, and which, in addition to all the standalone components. So we should go through and confirm whether we need the KubeFlow platform for running standalone components as well. That'll
Mhm.
be good to clarify.
Let me just quickly look at Artifact Hub just out of curiosity. If they do have, yeah, so they got a KubeFlow update 4 years ago.
Okay, so not so updated then.
Yeah, it doesn't look like they have an official. It doesn't necessarily need to be an Artifact Hub. That could be another way I look is if I go.
Customize.
I normally look into the org, and they could have like a repo called Helm chart, and then just host it on GitHub pages or something.
Mm-hmm.
We could also help them to make an Artifact Hub if they wanted it.
Absolutely.
I did that for the KitFlow project recently. Okay, so we've got
Let's
41 repositories. Yeah, no harm.
customize. In
It's
case you have
interesting
a customize
because
chart.
there's probably a lot of different.
Looks like they might have a repository for customized manifests.
Yeah, so that's cool. 2 days ago. Yeah, okay, so Istio Knative and Cert Manager.
Yeah.
Cert Manager is the easy one, and then obviously Istio. I wonder how much out of the box Istio works. You've only used Linkerd, right? Or have you used Istio as well?
I've used Linkerd only.
Yeah, okay.
I've heard that they have made Istio way more simpler now, but
Okay.
I have not tested it recently.
Maybe that's a good one we should touch on. Like have a little look at Istio. Sort of same sort of style as this, what we're doing now. Okay, so.
I think we have a question.
Oh, yeah.
Or able to ingest customize, can you switch to Helm? I'm not completely clear on the question, but I think maybe he means that instead of customize, can we use Helm? But as you mentioned earlier, there is no Helm chart yet. If the community bands together, they would be able to create one.
Let's just say like there might be one. We could. Oh, there's a Reddit one. We could help them make this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. We'll unpack that later. That wouldn't take us too long to help them.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So installing KubeFlow, and thanks for the question. Please ask any more questions as we go. Okay, so yeah, okay, this is interesting, standalone components, because yeah, standalone.
This is very handy because we wouldn't
Yeah.
necessarily want to have the service mesh or have all the additional components. So you would want it with as few components as possible. And that's where
Yeah.
the standalone components would come in rather than using the whole platform. As you can see, I had mentioned earlier, the platform is provided for all. They have kind of helped with the bootstrapping of all
Yeah.
your platforms for cloud providers.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely sure the cloud providers have helped in this since there are so many components flying around.
There's a lot of money in it too, right? Because the ML would use a lot of GPU and RAM, and you can sort of
Yes.
see why they do it.
Yeah, we were doing a small little POC for one of our clients, and the bill pretty much went into
Yeah.
thousands very, very quickly, like just a couple of days. So I can definitely see how there's a
Yeah.
lot of money into ML pipelines and fine
Possibly,
tuning them.
possibly the way to go is a lot of folks actually do just use the cloud offering and they make it easier to bootstrap, like you said. But
Yeah.
I personally would like to do it more, install each component myself, but that's just me.
It could also potentially reduce costs, right? So if you
Yeah, definitely.
basically integrate this with things like Carpenter and
Yeah.
you basically have Kida, where you scale down all your components whenever you don't require them and scale them up only as long as you're using them. It
Yeah,
could reduce costs quite drastically.
Carpenter's becoming quite a hot topic. There's a lot of people adopting it and wanting to slowly starting to wanting to talk about it as well. So yeah, it'll be
Absolutely.
interesting to see this as well.
Yeah.
All right, so this is the platform. Like you said, it's all on the other distribution. So
Hmm.
okay, and here's a
Should we walk
manifest.
through the?
That's the ones that we actually just looked at before. So that's
Yeah.
good to know. So you do use the manifest to install.
KubeFlow manifest working group. It provides KubeFlow components, dashboard, and other applications that comprise the KubeFlow platform. So, but that is for the platform and not for standalone. Is my understanding correct?
I believe so. Yeah. One in the KubeFlow manifest provide a quick way to get minimum viable platform up and running. All right. So let's should we park that for now? We can probably go through the manifest later.
Let's go through the architecture first.
Yeah, let me see if I can. Okay, this is quite interesting. So a lot of stuff going on, eh?
Yeah. So the ecosystem has lots of integrations with all different
Is
components, whether it's
is Dix that project that Argo used to use for sign on for the
uh,
authentication?
sorry, which one?
Dix.
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
So
Yeah.
all the open source, not just Argo, all the open source tooling use text for single sign-on and etc.
So
So
that's different to KeyCloak, eh?
yes,
So
so
it's
that is mainly
KeyCloak doesn't
just
use
for
Dix. Yeah.
yes, that's
Okay.
just mainly for single sign-on integrations in the backend with OIDC, etc.
Yeah. So yeah, like every cloud self-hosted. Yeah, I know. I've seen in a couple of blogs that people were using it locally as well. So you'd have to have a pretty beefy computer, I would say.
Yeah.
At least like 16 gig or 32 gig.
I think I read
Probably
somewhere
more.
where they recommend 16 gigs or 32 gigs of RAM
Yeah,
for setting up KubeFlow.
yeah. Lucky we have 64. So get the infrastructure going. So we got the Kubernetes, and then we need the other components, SDO, Cert Manager, Dex, and then it comes Kubeflow components.
Mhm. So
The
that's
full
KubeFlow
operators.
pipelines.
You could probably, it looks like being operators, you could probably install these all through code, through Argo and keep it sort of GitOps style as well, which is quite cool.
Yeah. I think especially with so many components, you wouldn't want to install it one by one anyway. It would just be a
Yeah,
lot to unpack. My only question would be, do we necessarily require, can we just install Kubeflow components onto Kubernetes and leverage all our standard tools? Like Cert Manager is just by default there, but not everyone is going to necessarily have Istio, etc. set up for their platform.
So it looks like the core of what it is in the KubeFlow components, and the ecosystem is like, VS Code. If you use R for your language, RStudio, Jupyter Labs to integrate with the notebook. So it does look like those 9 components.
Yeah, those 9 components are the only major components that are required.
Yeah.
And then you have all the integrations and external add-ons which are present.
The model registry is interesting as well. So
Yeah.
I wonder if the model is like the actual data itself, or if it's defining
That should be the built model which you would finally serve. So based on, once you create a model, you have to store your model at some particular location, and then finally at the end you'll use, as we were earlier talking about KServe, you use KServe to provide an endpoint for your model, so that it has inference URL where anyone who's running their respective data would run it against that inference URL.
Okay. Here's some examples. Let's see what they do.
Can you zoom in a bit?
Sure. Thanks.
Thank you.
Named entity recognition, build. Yeah, these are quite nice how they have examples as well, if you want to get started with the issue summarization.
Yeah. So they're basically covering everything from the beginning of connecting to Jupyter Hub to setting up your front end. Should we go through one of the examples?
Yeah, we can. Should we pick one that we like?
Yep.
Sort of maybe GitHub issues might be an easy one to go through, I'm thinking. Let's go through the GitHub one.
This should be a README.
Yep.
Deprecated end-to-end KubeFlow tutorial to use sequence-to-sequence model. This example does not currently work correctly and has been deprecated.
Okay. Let's choose the other one.
Maybe a different one.
Yeah. They should probably, to be fair, put deprecated next to the title. All right. So
This looks good, I think.
it does, yeah.
Patchy done and cell done.
Okay, this is cool. Quite good diagrams.
Yeah.
So this tutorial will pre-process a training data set containing GitHub issue data, trains a sequence-to-sequence model to summarize the issues, version controls model binaries, builds Docker images for the for serving of the model, and then exports it to Docker registry.
And to Selden for serving.
Yeah, true.
This example is based on modeling code from another KubeFlow example. However, by using Pachyderm to manage the example's data and pipeline, we can create a distributed pipeline.
It's interesting these other files, the DPKL and the MPY.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what they are?
Used them.
Yeah.
No, I've not used them before.
And then the H5, I believe, isn't there a concept of H3 database where it's just like sort of runs in memory? Possibly it's that.
We'll check quickly.
to get this example up, you're going to deploy KubeFlow, which we won't do today because that would probably take too long.
Yeah.
And then, yeah,
Deploy
it's good.
Apache.
We're getting a bit of a good overview of what it actually is, right?
Absolutely. So HDF is hierarchical data format. It's a
Okay.
data model extension created by
Okay.
NASA.
Wow. Okay. So we can probably look at, sorry, I'm just going fast. That's quite a lot probably. Let's go up here and see, is there any files that stick out to you? Like,
I think the README should point to what's the order of which files we need to go through.
so the train. So it looks very much Python for a lot of the code, right? So after they install KubeFlow, it's probably, that's all you really need to do. Just start living in Python.
Because
Looks
I do
pretty
think
standard.
that the machine learning engineers would be more comfortable with working with Python than anything.
Yeah,
Python
it's
or
quite
R.
easy. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how many people use R and how many use Python for this.
Yep. Based on past experience, I found that people started moving towards Python more than R
Yeah.
gradually.
I like this is like 10 years ago. I got a book on R. I opened it and closed it straight away. It was also I got one on machine learning for Python, and it was just statistics and just way too high. That's why I became into DevOps. It's easier.
So should we go through the Docker file? I'm
Yeah.
curious about what is the Docker file used for. It looks like it's installing all the components that are required by their scripts. These are all the additional components and dependencies which they have.
Yeah. Nice. All right.
Awesome.
I think it's a good overview. What would you like to look at anything else today, or talk more about it?
We can start going through the installation document
Okay.
and seeing what are the
Would you
different
like
components.
Would you like to share your
And
screen,
sure, just give
or
me
we
a
can
second.
keep in mind if you need?
Let's keep it yours for now. I will just pull up
Sure.
GCP console, etc., and then
That's fine.
once.
Next. Okay, KServe serverless inferencing on Kubernetes.
It's KServe is now KServe. It's serverless inference on Kubernetes, providing. So this was the it's the inference URL which will be provided, so you can run your models against it at the end.
Yep. I'll look at this. I think this answers our question. Knative plus Istio optional serverless service mesh layer. So that's optional.
Yeah, got it.
So
We would require only the important components which are present at the beginning.
Yeah, which you can probably just use customize in those manifest files to do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good. I'm just pulling up the document for KubeFlow's installation on GCP to check whether it's straightforward.
So the models web app is a component that provides user-friendly way to handle the lifecycle of inference service.
Yeah, I think you can install each component by itself, where it kind of walks you through individual components for each of the installations.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna ping you the component. So this is the part where I mentioned that the prerequisites was 32 GB.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah.
So on the previous screen that you were looking at, the prerequisite was 32 GB, which is quite high. So it is something which there is high possibility you will be incurring a bill for
Yeah.
when you're playing around with it for your examples and demo. So just something to keep in mind
True.
when when you do start using it or installing it on the cloud, unless you're doing it on your local machine, which might run into certain limitations because of memory and CPU limitations.
Yeah. It's quite cool to have auto scaling that you can scale down to 0 as well.
Yeah. So we have another question where Leo has mentioned, sorry, I've joined late, but definitely interested in this since I'm preparing for CKA. Based on what I understand, I don't think this is necessarily going to be part of the CKA. Am I right in saying that, Brad?
Yeah. So that's awesome that you want to do CKA. It's a great exam. If you haven't done the KCNA exam, I would also recommend doing that first. When I did my certs, I also did the developer one first because it's a little bit easier. So check that out as well with the KCNA. I think it's a really good. Once you get into like exam mode, you get the sort of the buzz and you know you get really happy when you actually get the exam. It makes you go for the next one because the CKA is actually quite hard. But none of this would be in the CKA at all.
Yeah. So I think we can actually walk through each of the components because the standalone components can be installed by themselves. And I'm just clicking on the links and I noticed
Okay.
that they're quite straightforward to install. So
Okay.
let's walk through each of the 9 components that we have.
Mm-hmm.
So here you can see there is a install Knative serving. So you will have to click on that link where it says, please refer to Knative serving install guide.
Mm-hmm. I feel like I feel like we're jumping way too much though. It's probably quite hard to follow just us watching us jumping around all these different links. What do you think?
Got it. So should we not walk through the 9 different components installation,
Yeah,
you reckon?
I think it feels too heavy. I think if folks want to do that afterwards, they can. I think like what we've done is a pretty good enough intro anyway.
Yeah,
So I feel like this talk would get very dry fast if we started just clicking through links and
fair enough, because it does
um,
have quite a few components with it.
yeah, yeah. No, I think it's good, but it definitely answered a lot of my questions and curiosity around it, and I actually generally have a pretty good overview of what it is now, which is good. I didn't have anything, and this is what the whole chat look back off is about, right?
Absolutely.
So I quite like this initiative that they came up with. It's cool.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
All right. So do you have any sort of closing notes? What are your thoughts on KubeFlow?
It's a pretty amazing tool, and if you want to ensure that you're not constantly running your systems, um, if you're in your initial stages and you want to run all your future machine learning pipelines on Kubernetes, then this is actually a great way to begin.
Yeah, it looks like it has buy-in from a lot of big companies for contributions. So it would, I think in the long run, it would probably save quite a lot of money using this opposed to other managed services.
Yeah, I do think it's something which you need to test, because one of the things which I have personally found is Kubernetes is great only after you've reached a particular size. Prior to that, it's better to stick to your cloud components, and you don't have the scale to actually incur costs as much. Um, it's only after you reach that scale, then Kubernetes should be an option.
Mhm. Yeah. So for anyone wanting to do their own research, you can go to kubeflow.org. Here you can also find links to the GitHub, etc. They do have a Slack channel, and so yeah, if you want to join the Slack channel and ask questions about how to install, etc., I'm sure there'll be lots of folks that can help out there. And yeah, thank you everyone for attending another session of ChatLoopBackOff. Albert, thanks for coming early in the morning. We appreciate it. I think that was a good talk, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Brad. I've really enjoyed this overview.
Cool. All right. Have a good day, everyone.